For many people of a certain generation, the idea of pulling out a map to find the directions to some place is a concept that they may not even know how to do. I remember years ago that when you'd get an invitation to a wedding, you would get also within the invitation directions, often a map, so that you would know how to get both to the site of the ceremony as well as to the venue for the reception. I can't remember the last time I got an invitation to anything that included directions. Most of us find the way, not through a map, but maybe through a smartphone or an iPad or some other device, maybe our computer in the car. And within just seconds, we plug in the destination and we're offered several different ways to get to that destination provided to us by the GPS device. Recently, I was in Indianapolis, a city that I'd never been in before, and my phone's GPS was invaluable as I walked around the city trying to find certain places as well as to locate where exactly I was standing. All this came to mind when I was reading today's gospel. In it, the disciple Thomas asks Jesus, "We do not know where you are going. How can we know the way?" To which Jesus responds, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Today, Roger Easton, the principal inventor and the designer of the Global Positioning System, GPS, was born in 1921. He died a few years ago. I think he was 93 when he died. His invention is used in so many places in this day and age, in the military, scientific, and civilian life. In many ways, depending on where you are, it's a lot harder to get lost. That may be true when we're driving or we're walking, but there are other journeys, spiritual, personal, emotional ones, where we often will lose our way, where we often find ourselves lost. And I suspect there's not a person who's watching this right now who hasn't had the experience of saying there was no place that I could just plug in and find out exactly how to get out of the sense of being lost or not being able to find my way personally. Now, Jesus anticipated that not only Thomas, but that all of us would struggle with finding the way in our daily life. He understood that life is hard and that somehow, while he didn't live through a pandemic, he lived in times when people faced an uncertain future. So Jesus tells his disciples, and he tells us, you know the way. You know the way. The way is not found in a how-to manual or on an app for your phone or your computer. The way, how to move forward, how not to get lost, is always found by looking at Jesus and doing what Jesus did. Jesus wants us to have first a relationship with God, not only in the good times, not only when it's convenient, or not only when we're lost, but every day. That a life of prayer which includes gratitude and quiet and reflection, this is what will prevent us in our life from losing our way. But we need to practice it each day. Jesus also wants us to be other-directed as he was. Sure, there's times when we're focused on our own problems or our own challenges. That's quite understandable. But the danger is when we become so focused on ourselves that we forget there are other people around us. There are other people who are making even the same journey that we are, and we're oblivious to them. This is like, that person who's on their cell phone looking at the screen, they're walking down the street, and they're bumping into people. Jesus insists that unless we look up and see the people around us, we'll not only collide into them, but we'll never find our way. Jesus insists that the way is the way of forgiveness, of showing mercy, having compassion, of listening to others, and realizing we are not alone. And finally, Jesus says part of the way is coming to the table each week. It's receiving the Eucharist and then carrying the true presence of Jesus out into the world, consciously bringing him wherever we go. That's what helps us always find the way. Recently my car was serviced, just a regular checkup, certain mileage that you then get the tires checked, the oil looked at, changed. But there was also this time a recall to fix the computer system in my car. And it was basically a reset of the entire system, and I was back in business. Maybe that's a good way for all of us to look at the remaining weeks of the Easter season, to see this as a time of a quick reset to our spiritual life, to spend time reflecting on how we who do know the way of Jesus are actually living it and following it. Today is also the birthday of the great author Annie Dillard. If you've never had a chance to read her, she's spectacular. Her books like An American Childhood, Tickets for a Prayer Wheel, they've helped my spiritual journey over these many years. I believe Annie Dillard is 76 years old today, so happy birthday to her. I came across this quote of hers. She writes, "No one escapes the wilderness on the way to the promised land. No one escapes the wilderness on the way to the promised land." The pandemic has certainly been a time of being in the wilderness. None of us have been able to escape this wilderness. But as we emerge and we sense that better days await us, may we today renew our commitment as we realize that we are all of us, on the way to the promised land.